7.
Good year.
Good year. It was a good year for us.
Still an
We
only
had
child.
delightful years. One of the big delights was about a month after I opened it. I realized how much I did not know about selling books. It's a business that you learn very quickly or you get out of the business. But like everybody else, I was a new kid on the block. I knew what a book was. I had read one back in college. And one Saturday afternoon, there was a knock on our door. And I looked up and there was a lovely young lady knocking on the door. And being the polite person I sometimes am, I introduced myself. She came in and said, "How can I help you?" She said, "I'm your new book rep." I said, "Oh, really? For where?" And she went down the stereo. Random House. There wasn't Simon & Schuster yet then, it wasn't Harper yet then. Anyway, she went off with a whole bunch of books. And I thought, oh my gosh, my first book, this can really be a help to me. So she made an appointment for, I think that was on a Saturday, and on Monday, I think it was, we got together. And the rest is history. It's absolutely wonderful. That lovely lady working as a bookseller became a lovely friend. And has been for all these years. I guess the only thing of real significance I have to tell you is that Gloria and I are the kind of people that keep our eyes on our friends. And next fall was the annual meeting down at Folly Beach, one of the beaches down there someplace. So I asked Sally, oh,
yeah. Here's Sally.
Here's Sally.
Taking her time.
I'm not taking her
No,
time.
you have to take it.
I was watching Sally, and she's really good.
It wasn't Pat Conroy, it's Doug Marlette.
What happens at conference stays at conference, you know, like that's.
It's all the heat, right? Okay, so it's very delightful to see everybody again. Thanks so much for having me. So I have a stack of books here, heavy on sports this year, but that seems appropriate, right? So I'm gonna start and go alphabetically down the list. This is a book, nonfiction, called The Art of Beat. True story of love, crime, and a dangerous obsession. This is a wonderful, fast-paced book about a man and his girlfriend who stole over $2 billion worth of art in 10 years in Europe. And he didn't do it because he wanted to sell them or make big money. He did it because he felt like the museums didn't appreciate the art as well as he did. And I'm not
I feel that way about the bank.
So he actually stored these pieces in his mother's house. So in the bedroom, in the attic.
Next to the bodies.
No bodies. But it is just absolutely amazing. 200 heists, 200 incidents that they know of him stealing these famous works of art. So Michael Finkel is an excellent author. He writes about the people that just take a sidestep or they're a step away from normal behavior. This is not usually normal behavior, but it's a fascinating book and it's perfect for any age. And if you're like, we have a lot of fiction readers that I don't read nonfiction. Well, you should, because sometimes true is stranger than fiction. So, okay. So what I've done for the past couple of years is I send a postcard to Freedom, Maine, to Erin French's restaurant, because it's the hardest restaurant to get reservations at. And what she does is you have to mail a postcard in, and she throws it in a box, and then she picks them out for reservations. So there's no, oh, I know your mother, you know, oh, here, I'll give you big money. It's a very fine restaurant in Maine. So far, we haven't been picked. So what you do is you get the reservations, then you have to plan the trip to make it up there. So she has a new cookbook called Big Heart Little Stove. She is on TV and has a cooking show on TV. But these are recipes for people that already like to cook. They're not hard, but this is not a beginner's cookbook. But it's a fun thing every year. So every year I send a picture of the postcard. I do a photocopy to my sisters and say, maybe we'll win this year. And it's a very cheap present because all it costs is a postcard stamp. So this is our pick for the fine dining cookbook this year. Mary Kay Andrews, whose real name is Kathy Trocheck, has been a friend of the store for years and years and years. And recently she came into Charlotte for her new book, which is Bright Lights, Big City, which is about a North Carolina girl who has to go up to Greenwich Village to go sell Christmas trees. I went to school at Appalachian, and I had a boyfriend that thought he was gonna sell Christmas trees, and I tell you, it is a sticky mess. And I don't want any cut trees anymore. If we buy a tree, it's the one that still has the root ball in it, and we plant it. But this is a hilarious little book. It's a nice little book if you have your son's girlfriend and she's coming for Christmas and you don't know what to get her. So we have some signed copies. It's funny, it's cute. It has some smooching, but no sex in it. And it's really very funny and appropriate for any age. Ron Rash is also a wonderful friend of the store and one of North Carolina's finest writers. He started off as a poet and then he mastered short stories and he has many novels. And every time I ask him what he's writing on, he groans and he's like, I'm working on another novel, just shoot me now. Why do I keep doing this? Poetry is easier. But it's well worth the wait when he writes a novel. This takes place in Blowing Rock in the 1950s. The caretaker, the main character, had polio when he was young. So he's a little disfigured and has a limp. He takes care of the graveyard up in Blowing Rock. And by the way, Ron Rash did spend every summer up in Blowing Rock. His grandmother had a farm off Aho Road, and the family still owns half the farm up there. So the main character takes care of the graveyard. He also is taking care of his best friend's wife while his best friend is off in the Korean War. And he's taking care of his friend's wife because he was disowned from his family. His parents owned the main store in town, but he married somebody they did not want him to marry. So he's in charge of taking care of his best friend's wife because her in-laws cut them totally out of the family, even though she's pregnant with her child. And then something happens, and I'm not gonna tell you what happens, because you'll have to read the book. It is beautifully written. We had Ron come to the store before the book was out, and I ordered lots of books because I love him so much, and I knew we were gonna sell it, and it's gonna end up on our bestseller list last year. And my sales rep told me before the book went on sale, they had to go back for the fourth printing. Because the reviews, the advanced reviews were so wonderful and hot that all the stores were increasing their orders. So, lovely man. This is what happens when a scientist marries a humorist. This is A City in Mars by Kelly and Zach Wienersmith. Can we settle space? Should we settle space? And have we really thought this through? And no, we don't think anything through, do we? Maybe we're like, well, we could do that, so let's do it. And then you're like, ooh, maybe we should. This is a very, very funny book. It's great for people interested in science, interested in can we settle Mars? Should we settle Mars? The problems that humans will have in space. Sex does require some friction, so that's all I'll say. But this is a very funny book. It's well written. They make a perfect pair, and it's very interesting also. By the way, it's not going to be in our lifetime. Margaret Rankel is one of my favorite writers. She lives in Tennessee, and she writes once a week. I do believe it's for the New York Times on a Monday. And what she likes to do is she likes to observe what's going on around her. So sometimes she writes in the newspaper about politics, but most of the times it's what's in her backyard. So this is almost like a weekly devotional of nature in her backyard. And the beauty of this book is that her brother illustrates it. And he's been doing this since they were little children. She would write a story and he would illustrate it. So there's these beautiful, beautiful paintings in here. So winter, week 6, hate to see that evening sun go down. And it's just wonderful. They're wonderful daily meditations. They're not religious, but more important, they're about nature and our soul. And if you're not familiar with her, please do become familiar with her. She's great. As I said, we have a lot of sports books. So football done right, obviously the Panthers can't do that. It was really funny because the day that Tepper fired our coach, Scott Fowler was in the store that morning because he has a book also. And he called me and said, I'm gonna be late, I'm busy writing. And we're like, what's happening? And he's like, oh, the ball's getting ready to drop. And Scott, as you saw the Observer, he was like, he fired the wrong person, he should have fired himself. So, whoa, yeah. But this is Football Done Right by Michael Lombardi. Michael Lombardi, he went through 3 Super Bowls, and so this is a book just about the comprehensives of football, setting the record straight on the coaches, players, and the history of the NFL. So it's a really fascinating book. You can pick it up, put it down, just wonderful. I gave this to my grandnephew. I hate to say that already. He's 12 years old now and getting very interested in the statistics of football. So he is loving this book and sent me a little kissy emoji text message, which I can't do, but he can.
Sally, is that Vince Lombardi's family?
I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's his son or nephew. Yeah, and he's been like a CBS Sports, all the shows. H.W. Rams is one of my favorite historians. He teaches at the University of Texas at Austin. And and he's just a wonderful historian. He likes to say what's happened in the past to apply it to the present day. And this is founding partisans. Hamilton, Madison, Jefferson, and Davis. And the founding fathers did not want us to have political parties. Guess what happened? We had political parties. So there was the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and it's how we got into this mess that we're in today. So really good, really funny. He writes really well. It's a reminder that we keep repeating the past, and so if you don't know your past, you can't predict the future. This is an utterly fascinating book. Did you know that 80% of the sneakers sold are never worn? Wow. Yeah. 80%.
Say that again?
80% of the sneakers produced, and these aren't like Keds. These are the sneakers that you have to give some money for. They're never worn. And I know this because I live in Plaza Midwood, and there's a social store that sells sneakers, and when the new releases come out, there's at least 100 people camping, waiting to buy these shoes. I have customers whose children are allowed to use a spare room and sometimes even rent a storage locker because they make so much money buying and trading these sneakers. So this is the story of basketball and 15 sneakers. And of course, Michael Jordan's in here. So there's a lot of Nike, but there's a lot of other ones, like the Reebok Pump, if you remember that, which was pretty funny. But a really interesting, fascinating book. I didn't realize the statistics were that high, but it's really fascinating that these sneakers have become a form of currency. Martin Clark is my favorite legal thriller. He's called The Thinking Man's Grisham or The Drinking Man's Grisham. He is a retired federal circuit court judge up in Stuart, Virginia, population 1,475. And I know that because we go up to sell books for him when his new books release. We have it at the Patrick County Library, which is in the middle of town. And the right-hand side is the library, and the left-hand side is the museum. And so we go up there, and he's very nice. He puts us up for the night. So this year when we went up there, I said, what time are we doing it, Martin? He said 3:30 to 8 o'clock, and I said, okay, and I said, I'll be there at 2:30. And I like to get there early to set up, but I also know it's a small town. And everybody, it's like a wedding, they're gonna show up early. And just sure enough, I get there an hour early, and there's already 25 people in line.
Oh my gosh.
We sold, I think, 740 copies that day, because everybody shows up. They love Martin Clark so much. Because when he was on the bench, he explained everything to everybody. So people that he sent to prison showed up. Other retired judges showed up, court clerks, everybody. So this is a great legal thriller, The Plinko Bounce. And The Plinko Bounce, if you remember The Price is Right, that you start the little doodad and it can go to the left or right. Usually it's fixed. Usually it's fixed, especially at fairs. So this is a book that takes place during COVID. The main character is a legal defender, and it's his job to defend a man who admitted to murdering the wealthiest man's wife, the wealthiest man in town's wife. He admits to it, but it's the legal defender's job. And in researching things, he finds out that the police didn't do what they were supposed to do. And it's distasteful. I mean, this guy murdered the woman, he admitted to it, but it's his job. So this is what happens afterwards. And it takes place during COVID. And it's so funny how quickly our mind just purges of, everything that we did and didn't do and things like this. And I'll tell you, the ending is superb. Absolutely wonderful. Everybody that has read this, that I've given it to has come back in and said, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what happened. So great, great book. In fact, the New York Times reviewed this book the same day they reviewed Grisham's latest book. And they said, you should just read The Plinko Bounce. Don't bother. Yeah, they were a little brutal, Wow. See? It's the sequel to the murder.
Stephen Wright isn't books
Okay, so it's talking about Scott Fowler. Scott Fowler and Jeff Steiner have a new book out called Sports Legends of the Carolinas. These are interviews with some of our sports legends. And I really love the formatting of this book, because what they've done is, like Jeff Gordon. So there's a picture of Jeff Gordon, racing highlights, other highlights, what they're talking about, and then there's a QR code. And you can go right to the interview.
Oh, cool.
So it's very, and Scott will be at the store tomorrow at noon. If you want a book signed, if you can't make it, just call the store and, we'll get a copy for you signed. And Scott Fowler, he continues to stay a very nice looking man. I'll tell you that. Wow. It's like,
Footsie? Footsie? Gonna get some footsie?
I like his wife too much. Okay, so this is the cookbook that you give your newlyweds, or your child, or cousin, or even wife or husband that has just started saying, I want to cook. So this is Sola. She is wonderful. You can see her YouTube videos. She is just bright and bubbly and wonderful to watch. She makes you happy. And this is a cookbook that is done very well. So how to braise big hunks and stew little dudes. And she'll tell you the time, if it's for a beginner, if it's for intermediate, how long it will take. And it's just absolutely wonderful cookbook for beginner cooks. Very easy. It's a comb binding, so it lays flat on your counter, which I love, because as you know, we love to cook. So she is a kick in the head. So this is a perfect book for anybody, such as Sarah, getting ready to go to Japan with her boyfriend. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of Japanese food in here, but it's perfect for somebody that's just starting a household. I think it was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I bought the first volume of the Tar Heels, History of UNC Basketball. So now we're up to 1961 to 1969. Oh, I'm sure there's some of them in here too.
I think they're in the footnotes.
You are really, I'm
So everybody's been waiting for this for a long time, so it is until 1969, the best years, of course, since I was born in 1964, so these are the most important formative years. But I love looking at all these books, even if you don't like basketball, it's very amusing to see their uniforms. David Fleming has written a book, Who's Your Founding Father? David Fleming he still works for ESPN. And he lives up in Davidson, and he is a firm believer in the MECDEC and the May 20th Society. He's like, we did it first, So you want to have a good argument with him and say, I don't believe you. And it's very funny because he gets very animated, very involved. So this is his epic quest to uncover the first true Declaration of Independence, our MECDEC. It's very funny, it's very informative, and it's definitely going to be on our bestseller list for the bookstore next year. So my last one is my favorite. That's Not My Santa.
Aww, love this book.
An Usborne?
Yes, Usborne is now distributed by
Paper
Harper.
pie,
And it's
paper
Harper, yeah.
pie, yeah.
Yeah. So this one, That's Not My Santa, his hat is too soft. That's Not My Santa, his sleigh is too sparkly. That's Not My Santa, his sack is too rough. It's a very interactive book for babies. That's Not My Santa, his gloves are too fuzzy. That's Not My Santa, his boots are too squishy, you can squish them. That's Not My Santa, his beard is so fluffy. And so this is actually a new series of books called That's Not My Horse, That's Not My Dog, but they're interactive books and I really love them. Usborne does a really great job with their books. So I wasn't super impressed with any of the older kids' Christmas books, but I've loved hand selling this year, so I brought it in. So if you have any grandbabies,
Any book in that series is wonderful. Every one of them, we love them, we use them all.
they're great.
They're great.
We have a whole shelf full of them.
They're wonderful.
And there's That's Not My Snowman too, in case you have anybody that doesn't celebrate Santa Claus. So, any other questions about anything?
You went too fast.
Can you start over, Sally?
I will tell you that next year, James Patterson is coming out with a book with a co-author, and I'm very embarrassed I cannot remember the co-author's name, but it's a book about librarians and booksellers. And I'm gonna be in it, so.
What is the bookseller who got the story? Because it was going to close one
Ann Patchett,
and Patchett. I think it might be her.
but she wasn't the co-author.
Okay.
No, she wasn't, it was definitely a gentleman, Mike something, that I just, got word that they're publishing, it's either February or March. They'll have a lot of copies. But it's a great book, it's a book that deals with just bookstores, the problems they have, their love of books, why they did it, librarians, their love of books, why they do it, the problem that we're having now with banned books, and why we shouldn't be doing that. So it's a very wonderful, easy to peruse, so I'm told from the digital copy that I've seen, but I haven't seen an actual physical copy.
So it's nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
James Patterson's all over the place.
He is, he says he looks at himself, it's his job to help people, so if somebody comes to him and has a good idea, he's happy to put his name on it to help them out. And he's done this with nonfiction books. There's a book about police women and men. There's a book on nurses. So he does a lot of these, and he does it with fiction too, as you know. So he's like, I can do 6 books a year.
It's like Rick Royden, and there's a couple of them that are just like, it's like their name and there's always like another writer there.
Yes.
So it's always like, how much were they involved in the actual writing
A
of it?
lot of times James Patterson will just get the idea. And he fleshes it out a little bit,
I can give them ideas. It's like, I don't have to write it.
His name does sell.
Yeah.
And then James Patterson does give away millions of dollars every year to libraries, bookstores, schools. Sherry Smith that works for us won $500. Alex Welch won $500 grant for them. So he does a lot of good things. I don't care for his writing, but that's me, and there's plenty of other books out there. I mean, there's always so many out there that are just so wonderful. So, yes, sir?
Saturday was either you or you mentioned something about sending out a book or a postcard to the author that we're going to get these. I guess I'm just missing.
He was talking about
That was the cookbook.
Well, we sent a postcard
Right,
to get a
right.
reservation.
So this was get a reservation at the hardest restaurant to get a reservation at. Yeah.
In May.
Where is it in Maine?
Freedom, Maine, not very big, but again, Maine is not, it's they call it the best small town.
That's awesome.
So, it really is
That's
awesome.
really cool.
So we have plenty of wonderful books and we're happy to help you.
So Sally, from a demographics perspective, are you seeing more folks, younger folks coming into buy books now and
Yes.
books becoming less popular?
I would say it's becoming more popular. Book Talk, TOK, so TikTok. There's a sub-genre called Book Talk that is getting the 15 through, or I'd say 13 through 30-year-olds into the store. A lot of them are very racy. A lot of them are self-published, but a lot of them aren't. And it's funny because you see them come in, and usually there's 2 or 3 of them. You know, they have one. And at first they're like, you know, like they ventured in from, you know, McDonald's into fine dining. What do we do here? And you know, we just try to make it feel at ease. We're like, hey, here, we don't have that, but there's another book similar. Go sit down and, you know, read the first chapter. So we're seeing a huge, I would say huge difference in the teenagers up to 30. We're seeing more men in the store since COVID, which is really interesting. Especially, it used to be men would come in at night and on the weekends, but now we have a lot of day shoppers that, you know, I guess since you work out of your house, you know, you get bored, you wanna see some people, you know, we're a good third place to be. You know, if you have to excuse yourself from an outside, take a phone call or something like that. The classics, I started branching out, bringing more classics back in, even lesser known works of various writers, Steinbeck and things like that, which is very interesting, I find. We're really selling a wide variety of everything. So it's very encouraging.
I had read it somewhere and I just wanted to know if it was
It's happening
happening
here in
here.
Charlotte too. I just got word, we've been helping a lot of young people that would like to open up a bookstore. So a young couple, I can't tell you definitely the name or anything, but Belmont will be getting a bookstore.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So they said they signed the lease, but I don't wanna, you know, they'll make an announcement. It will be called the Belmont Bookstore Bookshop. I think it's the Belmont Bookstore or Bookshop. But we're very happy about that. You know, they were really cute. He is a garden designer, so he knows AutoCAD. So he had brought in like what he envisioned the store was gonna be. And it was really cute because it was sort of like, I was like, no, you have to put the cash wrap near the front door. And he's like, why? And I said, because all your books will leave the front door if you don't do that. He's like, really? People steal books? But they're young and energetic, and you know, that's a wonderful thing. Because one bookstore is fine. I do not want another bookstore. Right, John? I mean, you tried that.
There are a bunch of, I've seen 2 mobile buses pop up in the last year and a half.
Yes.
There's a brand new one called Trope that they just do romance. So, and young, just,
Yeah.
she's young.
Yeah, she likes the spicy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she likes spicy.
She likes spicy. She lives in my neighborhood.
Oh,
so I
really?
always- yeah. And I'm always looking for the license plate. Where did they have the license plate on it? It's an old converted van. It's beautiful.
I haven't seen it yet, so.
Yes.
I want to make another plug for who's your founding father. Not only not only will it tell you about the next deck and solidly, beyond reasonable doubt, convince you that it is the first, but it also gives you a great understanding of how this town grew, became what it is, and why it has the character that it does. So, read it for both of us.
Yep. He laughs so much. So I was like, okay, what did he say now?
He's very energetic, if you get a chance to hear him speak, definitely do it. You should bring him in. I mean, he'd probably come talk to y'all. He's great.
Sally, are you doing the Christmas tree yet?
We are. So the book tree goes up right after Thanksgiving. Sherry, that she always works the first shift, the day after Thanksgiving. The tree is up. So we do the book tree. We've been doing this since the 90s.
What is the book tree?
And the book tree, originally it was the angel tree. Algonquin Books out of Chapel Hill sponsored it, and they used to have these paper angels. And we worked with at-risk kids, so now it's communities and schools, kids that have never had books before. It's heartbreaking. So we work with communities and schools, and we clear a lot of angels off the tree. I think Sherry said that we have 500 kids this year.
Wow.
So you can pick up an ornament off the tree and buy the book. We give you 20% off. We make sure it gets wrapped and then delivered. Some of them get delivered before Christmas, some get delivered after Christmas, but the kids are fine with that. Because they're like, anytime anybody wants to give me a present, I'm fine with that. And anything, if you don't wanna do that, we take the donations, any money that's left over, and luckily there's been money left over every year. We buy SAT books, teenage pregnancy books, staples for the various classrooms. More copies if they need new copies of anything, exercise books. Handwriting books are very popular this year with a lot of teachers.
What is that?
Handwriting, learning cursive. Because of the mind-brain connection with it, even if they don't require it in school anymore, they found that it's a very, very good thing for young kids to learn. And it makes you better at sports too.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how things go in and out of fashion. And we get every person that comes into our store that applies for a job, when I say you have to handwrite out your application, they're like, oh, but my handwriting's terrible. And I'm like, you have to have good handwriting to work here because we have paper backup for everything. And there's a lot of stuff that happens so quick, you can't sit there and type everything out. That's impractical. So a lot of them are very surprised when we say you have to have good handwriting.
They don't teach cursive, which is really sad.
It is very sad. But some of the teachers and just if the kids are having they're dyslexic, it's very good because the pencil never leaves the paper and the brain
It's also
connection.
faster.
Yes.
My son had to adapt himself into writing really, really tiny so he could write fast. Because they couldn't do cursive.
Oh.
I have a son with ADHD and he actually, his handwriting was so bad that he would lose the thread in his brain trying to write it all out. So they got him to write. My kids were actually taught cursive in elementary school for some bizarre reason in Union County, but they said that he can write faster and therefore keep his train of thought.
His brain doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So it's just fascinating being in the bookstore and watching society try this, try that, back off this, back off that.
I work with visually impaired students.
Mhm.
We had a student come in from Argentina and Brazil. And so I said, well, just print her name and practice and this. And she looked at me and I thought, oh, she's having a lot of visual issues because I didn't think of it. Finally, she said, we never learned how. They learned straight cursive.
Wow.
You know, so she was the second grader. Yeah, they'd already learned and weren't taken on.
That's interesting. I learned cursive and printing at the same time when I was myself.
Yeah.
It all depends on where you grew up. This was Delaware, and I remember vividly, first grade,
House of the
yeah.
Black Horse.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I couldn't wait, because I was the third kid, so, I wanted to be my older sisters, and read, and do all that stuff, so.
Is there,
Can
can I have any more questions? No? All right, well,
Well,
thank you.
actually,
Present you with one of our.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Carry your books.
I won't miss it either, the bright green.
All right, review the.
Can I make one quick announcement about the wreaths? First of all, thanks to Choice, again, for picking up the wreaths. But if there's a few of you who I have not received payment from, if you wanna settle up before you leave, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, fell out.
One fell out.
That's the way to.
So much for the new one. It's brand new and it's stuck.
Yeah. It's riding through.
Yeah, it's a turn. They